Hello, welcome to the Winning Balance podcast. We are joined with Kelly here. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having me.
Thayer, is that how you pronounce it?
Thayer.
Good.
There's an old joke on Golden Pond. It was Ethel Thayer with like a lisp. And everybody that's my age will know what on Golden Pond is.
Yeah,
But
I don't know.
Thayer was the name in that movie.
I love it.
Sounds like a lisp.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
I love it. Well, Kelly, how I first connected with you, I don't do like any LinkedIn cold outreach, but I saw your profile and I was like, this guy's local. And I also never do lunch meetings because I'm trying to be strict with my time. But I was like, if Kelly will do a lunch with me, I will take it in a heartbeat. And after some persistence on my end, you finally agreed.
Sorry, it was really more, the agenda was nuts at that
Oh,
time.
and I know how that goes. So no
Yeah.
apology needed at all. But yeah, Kelly, I thought he was a stud when I looked at his LinkedIn profile, and I have learned that I knew very, very little. And now I am, yeah, he's a lot more of a stud than I originally thought. So I
Well,
appreciate, I appreciate you
My wife will
jumping
thank
on. There we go. Hopefully she'll be listening at some point then. Okay, I'm going to read Kelly's bio and then wait till the end of this bio because there's some cool accolades that I want to share too. Kelly was the founder and CEO of Clear Image Incorporated, a marketing and communications company from 1981 to 1998. He has worked with over 200 companies and produced more than 700 films and videos, while duplicating more than 10 million copies for clients in the direct sales and network marketing industries. This company made a career out of building marketing tools and servicing 15 of the top 20 direct selling clients in the Direct Selling Association during the 80s and the 90s. That's amazing. And Kelly, before we were recording, said you were a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
So
that's about how I'd like to describe it.
That
The
sounds
direct selling industry is really small. The word network marketing sometimes spooks people because they think something that it's really not.
Yeah.
I let that slide off my back and say, no, wait a minute. This is a channel that nobody wants to be in, so I'm going to be in it. You know?
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you did extremely well at it. The part that I wanted to add onto the bio was that Kelly was one of two people on the Inc. magazine, which is a huge deal. Sorry, one of two people in Utah that was ever on the cover of Inc. magazine.
At that time, yeah.
And
Mrs. Fields was the other one.
there we go. I don't know who.
And she was a
I'm too
client.
young for this. So
Debbie Fields, the cookies. Mrs. Fields
Oh,
cookies. I
yeah.
used to do some video work for her.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I do know that.
Debbie Fields,
Yeah, I know those cookies.
phenomenal woman. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah, she was
I love
her
it.
story is amazing.
That's awesome. And then you won Entrepreneur of the Year for Inc. magazine for Utah,
Yeah.
which that in of itself is a massive, massive deal. And then you won regionals, which
Yeah.
was a few states. And then you lost in nationals, and Best Buy was the one that won it all.
They're the ones that won it that year. Yeah.
So that's obviously, you can take an L to Best
was
Buy. That's
a
fine.
very small fish in that pond.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's amazing that you're in
Yeah.
the same room as those people. But I mean, Kelly, the main reason that I wanted you on this podcast, I always say, I've said this redundantly on the Winning Balance podcast, is as soon as I had my baby, I no longer just looked up to business success and money success if their priorities were so out of check that it wasn't a life that I wanted to model my life after. And that's one thing that, talking to you, I know how much you value family,
yes.
and that's been very apparent. So I'm excited to dive more into your story and learn more about you and what you've done to keep family a priority, and we can dive into it. So
Sounds good.
you're starting a podcast. I'm talking too much. So now we're turning it over to Kelly. Or you started writing a book.
I am writing a book, yeah.
Yep. It's some time
But I'm
out.
not here to promote my book.
Yeah, you're not
No.
promoting your book. That's not why Kelly's here. But I got a sneak peek into the first chapter, and I'm definitely excited to be on the waiting list for that book. But you had chatted about you'd written about your story in that first chapter and how you got started. I'd love for you to tell the audience how you got started in this industry, and we can start right from there, if that
Okay.
works.
Yeah. You never know where fate will take you. I think that's part of what comes out in the book, and what path you're going to be put on. And I was up at BYU. I had 2 roommates that were incredible young guys that were just good friends. And I started noticing that they had something about them that was just different. Going on a mission wasn't on my agenda back in 1975. And then I met these 2 guys, and they just seemed to have their act together and were an influence. And then I thought, maybe this is something I need to do just to kind of get a, direction. So I, like all young men do in the church, you submit your papers, you wait for your call. I remember I was over in Riviera Apartments at a friend's place, and I called my aunt on the rototiller, phone. I didn't have my mobile phone. And I asked if I got my mission call, and she said it did come. And I said, well, just read it to me. And she read it, and it said that I was going to the Georgia Atlanta mission. So I went May of 1977 to May of 79 to Atlanta, Georgia. And while I was on my mission, halfway, got invited into a family's home and to share the message of the gospel. And when I walked into their living room, they had a video camera set up. And of course, it's hard for anybody to grasp what that might have looked like. But never has a video camera been in a living room. I've never seen it back then. And a cord that went to a machine, and then it projected the image of the room, and they were going to record our first, telling the discussions, and sharing their first story with them. And
How big was that big receiver that you mentioned? Like it was.
Oh yeah, they're big.
Really?
They were big back then. And you used to have to carry them on your shoulder along with your camera.
Like a boombox.
Yeah, it was bigger than,
really
heavy too. And these aren't lightweights. So, but I just saw this thing, and then a rush. It was unbelievable. It was like a rush of ideas just poured into my mind about the possibilities with that tool. Just be able to have a camera that could record instantly. You don't have to send it off to have it developed, and it doesn't look all, it was clean video, instant, and you could watch it right after you recorded it. So I put that on pause, finished my mission, came home, and I was working at ZCMI. Brad Pillow, dear friend. Brad's very successful. Ancestry.com was his baby.
Really?
And but he and I got this idea, like, let's start a business, He wanted to go after real estate, and I wanted to go after weddings. And we had this little back and forth. But anyway, I got him to videotape my wedding as a gift. So met my wife, as I tell how we met. And I arranged with him. I said, listen, I've had this idea, and help me out. Let's record my wedding. I'd never heard of anybody recording a wedding in 1980.
Really?
But this was 1979. And so he said, yeah, let me get some ideas together and that. Anyway, as we come out of the temple, he was videotaping, and I said, I want to have it set up at the reception. I want to play it back. We played You've Only Just Begun, which was the big wedding song of that decade, the 70s, 80s. And he did that. And then we played it at my reception right at the beginning of the line. And it was the funniest thing to watch. We take it for granted because everybody does that now. It's not a big deal. But I was literally the first person in the state of Utah to have this idea, and people were just mesmerized by it. In fact, the line wouldn't move. Everybody was standing around
They're stuck.
And so I leaned over to my wife. I said, look at that. And she goes, I know, they like it. And I says, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that. And she goes, okay. My wife is amazing. That's another thing I talk about in my book. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you better have an entrepreneur wife. But anyway, that gave me a demo reel, my own wedding. And then I got this idea that, I've got to sell it. I don't know how to sell it, but I knew that every Tuesday and Wednesday, paper came out, whether it was the Daily Herald or Salt Lake Tribune or the Deseret News. And in those papers back then would be all the brides listed that were getting married. And most importantly, their father's name was in there. Now, that's something else that most viewers won't recognize or understand, but there was a telephone book back in the good old days, and this is about this thick. And so I would, on my lunch breaks, look up the father of the bride in the phone book, call him, and tell him, you don't know me, tell him my name, I have a business, I'm out recording weddings, and and here's my deal. I said, my offer is this, no obligation. I come and I'll record the day at the temple, or if it was a live ceremony, whatever the occasion was, because I had both back then. And then I'll play the date, the service at the reception. And then I'll be there to record at the reception the guests that came and capture everything that you do that makes that wedding special so you can capture it. And I called it Video Memories. That was the name of my company. And the father of the bride would, well, yeah, I've already spent all the money. I said, that's the thing. Yeah. No charge unless you like the tape. So it was a no obligation offer. I'll come, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
I figured, what am I out? My time and a cassette tape, because I already had the equipment.
Yeah.
So I had like enough yeses. I got nothing to lose. But when I would show them this tape that I'd put together when they got back from their honeymoon, and I had bring the family together, and I'll come over and I'll set up a VCR and I'll play it for you. And of course, they're not a dry eye.
Yeah.
Emotions are running high. His fathers are like this, remembering all this. And I'd sell. My closing rate was phenomenal. Over 90% would sell.
Really?
Yeah.
They
don't want to lose it, because I
Yeah.
say, well, if you don't want it, I just record over it. So I'm not out of anything. I can use the tape again. And they're like, no. So how much is it? And it was $199 back then is what I charged to do the wedding day and the night. And then I would be in the back room of ZCMI, and I would be calling the father of the brides. And about 6 months into this idea that I had, I got notice and was given a pink slip. And the reason I got fired was misuse of the company phone, which blew my mind. I thought, well, George is my boss. I asked him. He said it was okay. He said, well, George doesn't own the store. Store policy is you don't use the store property for personal gain. Okay. No warning, just a pink slip, and I was out. And I was devastated.
And you were selling shoes, right?
Selling shoes, saving my money, go back to school, and it just wasn't in the cards, I guess. So that was a very difficult time. Now what? It really put my feet to the fire. So I said to my wife, look, I really think I can make this go. And of course she was like, I know you can. She's just always has been incredible. And so I said, well, here's my strategy. This is what I'm going to do. And I'll just keep calling, through the day and do this. And so, we limped along. It was tough. You have to do a lot of weddings to make $5,000 back then. And, but I said to her, the day that I can replace your income is the day you can quit. So that became our benchmark. And it took me a couple of years. But what really is the fun part of this story is that I needed a place where I could showcase. And ZCMI at the time was the largest wedding registry in
Really?
the state.
I've never even heard of that name.
ZCMI is Zion's Incorporated. It was owned by the church here.
Really?
And so
like a Nordstrom's type thing?
Exactly,
Okay.
a department store.
Yeah.
So Duff Thompson, another great name I like to share because he was my hero. I love Duff Thompson, and he was an attorney, worked for a big law firm in Salt Lake City, Green, Callister, and Nebaker, I think was the name of it. And he's also lived across the street from my in-laws. And so I went over to him, sat down, and said, listen, I have this idea. I want to go to ZCMI corporate present my idea of ZCMI video memories. I just need somebody who can get me the appointment. He goes, I'll get you an appointment. And sure enough, he did. And then I went in there with a presentation of how I, present how I could do this.
Yeah.
Using the bridal registry, putting a TV, VCR. I had a demo reel. And to get brides to add to their registry, the videotaping the wedding.
Oh, genius.
Yeah, and here's the best part. They approved that idea and let me use the credit card that the customer could put it on their credit card. Duff, my attorney, being the brilliant man that he was, had the contract read that there was no recourse. So once the deal was done, it was done, and they couldn't come back to me for anything. Once the customer signed up, and of course, there could be the risk of me not showing up, which I never missed a wedding ever. And but then I knew I had a big challenge ahead of me back then, and that was I can't do, all the stores. They gave me the University Mall store first because I lived down here, and if I proved it out, I could eventually get it in all. I think there were 7 stores where I could put it in the registry and have it be an add-on, which was phenomenal for me because I had no overhead in this concept.
And they're just getting a fee. That's
They're
their
getting-
incentive.
They got
to
15%. That was the contract.
Yeah.
I gave 8%, 6 to 8%, depending on the package that they sold, to the registry agent, so the worker could get a perk on top of their hourly rate.
Yeah.
So I incentivized them with a commission that if you sold a wedding, you got paid on top of your hourly rate. I didn't have to pay their hourly rate.
That's amazing.
and so sure enough, ZCMI Video Memories was born. I eventually did some pretty famous people in our state's weddings. I did Jim McMahon's wedding down in Provo at that little chapel there. I did Marie Osmond's wedding
Really?
with somebody else who had an in.
Yeah.
So, but we did, and she was on my reel. And Rice Eccles Stadiums.
Yeah.
I did Ren Rice's wedding. And once I started getting names on my reel, then it became a very hot ticket that I want to do that. If they can do it, I want to
Exactly.
do that. And I think I mentioned earlier that 4% of the homes had a VCR back then. And so I had a problem. I knew I had a little bit of a problem because I could record the tape and then they would say, well, how do we watch it?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, well, one day you'll have a VCR, but this will be a little capsule that when you buy one, you can pop it in and it'll play. And so I knew I had a marketing problem. And the way I solved that was there was a little store called Sounds Easy. So anybody who's listening who's been around here remembers back 45 years ago, Sounds Easy was the first company to set up stores where you could go in and rent video cassettes. And you bought a membership. So it was like a $100 annual membership. And then you could come in and rent a VCR and movies, take them home for the weekend or through the week, watch them, bring them back. And you didn't have to buy a VCR because for like $17 back then, you could have a VCR and about 5 movies and be on your way. But you had to have a membership. So I remember, okay, I got to figure out how to get this membership because I need that in my package. I can't afford to buy it because I'd have to bump up my price.
Yeah.
I kept my price at $199 for just doing the wedding at the venue, whether it was coming out of the temple or a live ceremony. And then it was extra, went up to $299 if you wanted the reception done too. And so for $299, you could have your wedding done, right?
Yeah.
So, and ironically, thank goodness I was first. I don't think I could have done it if I wasn't first. I went to Sounds Easy and said, listen, I have a way to get you more members all throughout the state. They were growing throughout the state. And I shared my vision, and I need you to give me your gold card. I can't pay for it. I don't have enough margin to pay you. But you give me the special card, I'll put it in the package. Then they'll have to come to your store to rent your VCR. And they're like, oh, okay.
Wait, what did the gold card give them?
That was the $100 a year membership.
Oh.
I included that in my package. So now I could, when I'm selling the packages at ZCMI, included in your wedding package
I
for
see.
$299 would get you a Sounds Easy Gold card, so that you could go rent a VCR
And they
if you
would just
don't have one.
profit off the second year
Oh
and
yeah,
on.
and
Right?
and they were making some pretty good margins on renting the VCRs out. It might have
Oh, I
been
see.
$25 for a weekend.
Yeah,
I can't remember, but it's been so long. That's 45
that's amazing.
years ago. So, but I solved the marketing problem, and my goal was always to keep my margins as low as possible because I didn't know whether this was going to be a fad or a clicky trend,
Yeah.
or um,
Keep your overhead minimal is what you mean?
really low.
Oh, okay. Not your
So,
margin.
no, did I say
Okay.
margin?
Yeah, you said margin.
No,
I was
sorry.
like, hopefully you're not
Shrink my
trying.
margin.
Yeah,
Grow my margin.
exactly.
Yeah. No, this, the whole idea was, and I was not a business genius. I think I had some instincts that
Yeah.
are unique for an entrepreneur because an entrepreneur is always figuring things out. They're
Yeah.
problem solvers. At the end of the day,
Always.
you're a problem solver.
Yeah.
And I think I thrive on problem solving, and to a fault, maybe to some degree. But so what I figured out, just kind of summarize and bring this to a close, I figured out that I had a place where I could sell my idea, CCMI. I had one VCR, one portable camera and recording machine. That was a problem. But I had a way now to get them their VCR at a low cost. So what I decided to do was hire 1099 contracted cameramen. And so I ran an ad and I had interviews, and they had to bring their reel, show me. By the time I came around to, it was 2 years after I was fired from ZCMI that I got the contract, almost 2 years. And I remember what a big deal that was. It was a celebration because that was like, but I thought I had arrived, and I couldn't have been further from the truth because with it came a lot more problems, managing weddings, because now I was exposed and I had to deliver. So I had these 1099 potential cameramen that had their own equipment, and I gave them $75 as a contract for a day's work, which was good money back then for a day.
Yeah.
To go out and do a wedding, and all that's all they had to do. And then I had a system on how they would put the music to it. I didn't understand music laws back then. Nobody really pressed it.
Yeah.
I ran into I won't get into that one, but that was an interesting challenge. But I taught them the system, and then it was up to them to get it done and deliver me the tape. And then I would take the tape. I would pay them that immediately by the week, because they could do 3 or 4 weddings in a week. At one point, I had 6 independent videographers. And it was doing really good for about 2 years into it, because then people started buying their own. And Uncle Dean could say, I've got a camera. That's my wedding gift to you, and I didn't anticipate that. I need to take a break and get a drink.
Yeah, you're good. They can chop it easy.
So I knew I had a challenge when I had family members and friends offering to videotape their wedding for free. In a way, it helped me, but it was a setback, because all of a sudden, I'm competing with free, or I'm competing with a relative who's willing to give it as a gift. And once I had gotten into it, it was about my 3rd year. I ended up meeting somebody who probably changed the course of my whole career. And he was also a neighbor of my father-in-law. And his name was Dr. Chen. And he owned one of these direct sell companies called Sunrider. And I got the idea, kind of one of those, like, that's what entrepreneurs do. Their ideas, they get them, just flood in, But the idea was, back then, that business model, network marketing, was all about going to a hotel meeting. And people after work, if
Like
they
a
wanted a
seminar?
side hustle, well, they'd go to this hotel meeting, and Dr. Chen would present his company, Sunrider, as an option as a side business because they had these products, and the sales force were the distributors. And so once I got a pretty good idea of what he did, I went to him and said, I have an idea. Let's do an evening with Dr. Chen. I'll come in with 2 cameras, and I'll set up an ISO camera, and I'll have a roaming camera and videotape you telling your story. And then when we're done, we'll edit it down and you approve it. And then you'll buy copies from me. I didn't charge him to go do this. This was like, I'll do it. But what became clear to me was I wasn't in the video production business as much as I was in the duplication business, because I got $8 a cassette to duplicate and sell to them.
Versus $1.99 one-time fee, you're done.
Yeah, well, and the fun part about the story is when I did it and we put it together, he got really excited about it. He had a pretty large, by this time, sales force, that he would bundle them 10 at a time, charge $10 a tape. So for $100, you could get 10. But then we came up with a system of teaching 3 to reach 3. So pass out 3 cassettes, get them to use that to recruit, then sell 3 cassettes that you have in your inventory to those people. And it was just a way to push tapes out. Robert Lovell, who was kind of the top distributor of that company, he was the biggest champion of it. He just said, this is incredible. This is going to be fun because, I mean, who wants to come home from work and run out to a hotel meeting? Some people like doing that because it was social interaction. But most people, if they have a VCR, let's pop the tape in. So I came up with the idea of this business is so easy. All you have to do is push in the tape and press play, and the tape will sell the business. They don't have to say anything. So they watch this. Back then, they could be as long as 20 minutes. I finally figured out the mean viewing time of a real consumer or even entrepreneur is short. But that's all nobody had done this before. So it was like, I'm going to find out if there's more companies like this. But his first order was 10,000 copies. So $80,000 was the first invoice. I mean, and I went, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Now I only made, because it cost me $6. So, but
you made $20,000.
I still made 20 grand profit on that deal. And I went, oh.
In the 80s, right?
Yeah. This is about 1984.
Yeah. 83
or 84. I have to go back and look at, I'm pretty sure it's about that range. So I had an aha moment again. Like I could do 80 weddings, or I could do.
Yeah.
So I had all this competition popping up with a free version that I needed to move myself in another direction. And so that's what happened is I then went from the consumer side to a corporate thing. I tell you, I was not a good businessman back then because I probably could have sold to somebody that contract with ZCMI. I just didn't renew it.
I see.
Because I wanted out and I wanted to go do this. And I just let these wedding videographers, they loved it, so they could just keep going, but it's up to them to figure out how they're going to get the business. And I ended ZCMI Video Memories. And then time went by, about 1986, and then I ended up in the old Osmond Studios. That became my production facility. Jimmy Osmond and I met up, got to know him, become very good friends with Jimmy. And he was buying the building out of bankruptcy. I owned some land on State Street, and I was going to build my own office and studio on State Street in North Orem. So if you ever go down North Orem and you see a Subway and there's a Chinese restaurant, it used to be a Blockbuster Video. I had about 3 acres of land in there that I had bought like in 1988 and sat on, and then was going to build a building. Jimmy's attorney, who sat on the Orem City Council, told Jimmy, hey, there's a guy going to build a little production studio, put us together, and Jimmy and I worked out a deal for me to be, I could then lease the space at a very good rate.
Yeah.
He wanted the acreage behind it so he could develop it. It's really a cool story because, I mean, the Donnie Murray show was done there from like 1977, I think it was, to 1983. I think was their run. And then the building just was no use for the building. I mean, it's an albatross to some degree. I mean, it's just a big brick building, but it was only good for being a production facility. So Jimmy convinced me not to build my building, but to lease from him, gave me a great deal.
Yeah.
And my company was Mountainland Video Productions. And that was how I started out, and then evolved by 1988 to Clear Image, and then Clear Image Marketing Communications. And my niche then became the direct selling channel. And so I made the videos back then for the industry. I mean, I had all the big, locals, Avon out of New York. I had Melaleuca out of Idaho. Anyway, throughout the United States, I had all these direct selling companies using me because I was the only guy in the channel at that time that understood their model, had made all these tapes. So I kind of became kind of a bigger deal inside that small little, that's why I say I was a big fish in a very small pond.
Which sounds like it worked phenomenally well.
And it did. I had a career from that time until about 1998. And I went the whole cycle. Because then it went from, 4% of the homes had a VCR when I started, cassettes costing, $6, all the way to where DVDs came out, shrunk my margins really horribly, making it almost like I had to do, millions to make, money.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was the cycle. It was going to fall along. And about 1995, I was introduced to the first JPEG on a website, how you could deliver
just like an image, a digital image,
but a video clip. And it took like 10 minutes to download. And I remember this guy showed me this, and I went, oh my gosh, I got a big problem now. Because why would you buy a copy if you could stream it
exactly
on a computer?
Yeah.
And so I could see the writing on the wall. Ran into some rough times because its competition came out. I mean, it's all owners go through it.
Exactly.
It's tough times, and nobody's got the perfect model. And I was transitioning, started a web development company side of my production business, and kind of evolved over to that. So that's kind of my first 20 years really, was how I got into the video business to what I really focused on, and got into commercial and infomercials. And my studio, I rented out to clients out of LA because I was cheaper. It was cheaper to come out here and rent my base for $400 an hour than it was to go to LA and pay $800 an hour. And so I had a little niche there, and I had people coming all the time. Studio was used for movies, which Jimmy had a big pull in. He could bring in these big Dumb and Dumber,
Dumb and Dumber came?
Parts of it was done at the studio.
Really?
And, some of Steven Spielberg's Footloose.
Really?
Yeah, we're done in the studio. That's credit Jimmy, because he's a very bright, sharp businessman in that family. I think he was the guy that was his gift. He could sing. Donnie, he was an entertainer. Jimmy, he was more behind the scenes. And anyway, that was a great time with him. I mean, because if he hadn't done what he did, I don't think I'd have gotten on the map.
That's amazing.
So that's that.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Kelly. I mean, you're a very, very good storyteller. So I feel like I'm like there. I feel like I'm in the scenes. So I love it. But the question I have for you, like, where you've talked to me about this prior during lunch, where we talked about this crazy season of your life. And I think, Entrepreneur of the Year, where did that come along? And then I know you went public on a company too. Like, was that in this 20-year ride with this, or is this later?
It was the next venture that I transitioned from away. But so the Entrepreneur of the Year came in 1992. And then the Inc. magazine cover came in 1993. And Success Magazine did a feature, and 40 Under 40 did a Entrepreneur magazine.
Yeah.
It was a magazine. And funny story about that. I'll share this. You may not use this.
No, please do.
But I didn't know first of all, my secretary, I didn't know I was being nominated for Entrepreneur of the Year. I was clueless until a phone call came in, and my assistant said, "Hey, you got Ernst & Young is on the phone. They want to talk to you." And so I get on the phone, and they told me I'd been nominated as a potential Entrepreneur of the Year representing Utah.
Really?
And I was like, "Whoa, like, how'd you hear about me?" Well,
Yeah.
somebody submitted, and it turned out my secretary,
Oh, sweet.
Debbie Olson. I love sharing the names because these are people that were critical in my career.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of them. It wasn't about me. It was really, I had some very talented people who actually finished college. I didn't, that got their degrees. And I just learned, I learned it from, called The E-Myth, one of the greatest books
I've read that. I've loved that book.
ever written
Yeah.
for an entrepreneur. And, it teaches you that 10s generally don't hire 10s.
Mm-hmm.
They hire 6 and 7s because the mentality of some entrepreneurs is to be controllers. I was never about that. I knew where my strengths were and where my weaknesses were. I'd rather hire smarter people than me, more educated than me, to come into the business. And that was important for me to understand back then. That's just understood today, but that wasn't always the case back then. But when I found out that, this had happened, I mean, it put some pressure on me because I didn't know, what does this mean, But, I mean, then the fun part was, once I had won, and the next year they decided to put me on the cover of an October issue, 1993, I think it was, and tell my story inside along with others. I wasn't the feature story.
Yeah.
I just was the cover story.
I love it.
And it was pretty cool because I was going to bring you a copy. I should have.
That would have been amazing.
But it's me in front of my duplication machines. It looked really high tech back then, and I think they loved that, and that's why they probably picked that over others, because technology hadn't really evolved. You had Novell, you had WordPerfect in the 90s, and that, but I was early 90s, and so just all the high tech stuff hadn't really reached. It's what it is today. Is
Exactly.
everything. But here's the story. So during that month, which was November, I did a lot of flying around, as I do in clients. And I remember my first experience was flying into San Francisco and had a meeting with a client there. And I go in the airport, and I walk into the stores. You know how they have all these stores? And there's my face plastered all over the store. So one of the things they used to do is they put Inc. magazine, because the number one selling thing were magazines. Airports, everybody bought a magazine or a newspaper so that while they're flying, they give them. We didn't have TVs.
Yeah, no phones.
We didn't have any of that. No phones, like we
no
do
Netflix.
Today. And there I was, and I'm like standing in the store, and I was looking around. Oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing. But the funny part about it was I was the only one who noticed it, And so it was also humbling because even if I walked up to it, nobody, but it was a big deal for me because I thought, oh my gosh, this is a big deal for me, So for a month I was, Inc. magazine was the number one selling magazine for business. Oh, it was, and it had all the shelf life space. And so the other funny part was another experience. I was going back to New York. I'm on a flight, and I got upgraded. I never bought first class tickets, by the way. I was a tightwad, but I had enough miles building up that I would be pegged and upgraded.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm sitting in first class, and on every airplane, the magazines are Inc. magazine, Success magazine, Wall Street Journal, all those things.
They had them in there already.
Oh yeah, on the plane.
Oh, okay.
And so guys would grab a magazine as you're walking down the aisle. That was a big deal back in the 90s. And the guy next to me had Inc. magazine, and I'm on the cover of it. And I'm sitting next to him, and the stewardess walks by, and she looks at the magazine, and she looks at me, and then she took a step back, and she goes, "Is that you?" And I'm like, "Oh, it is." And the guy holding the magazine closes it, looks at it, and then looks at me and goes, "Who are you?" I sound really nobody. I mean, I got lucky. I got on the cover of the magazine because of my business. And, I didn't have a story. I mean, I wasn't really prepared
Yeah.
for that. Nobody told you what to do. And it was such a shock because then all of a sudden, I had a story that I could use to tell, but that was a fun time. It lasted a month. And then I was back to being nobody.
Back to, I love it. Did you get business from it?
Oh, sure.
Really?
I hired a PR firm out of Chicago, and they did stories and used my Entrepreneur of the Year for this reason. And I used to speak at universities into the entrepreneur forums. In fact, my highlight was getting a call from BYU, and I asked if I would come and lecture in the Marriott School of Business because I was recognized. I was given an Entrepreneur of the Year award from Utah County after that.
Really?
I mean, it was kind of fun. But then I spoke at UVU, and it was a great experience for me because, I mean, I didn't finish college. I didn't, because I knew what I wanted to do, and they didn't offer this as an option, as a class, or as a degree. It was film. I didn't want to do film. I wanted to do video production. Well, then you had to go through television. I didn't want to do news. That's what it was, the news, KBYU, Channel 11. I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and that was build short format videos, whether it be training or marketing or infomercials and things like that.
So with that, I think we glazed over that we talked about your first venture and then this second venture where did all that, what were you doing at that time? Where was the business funneling?
My business was still the production, but
okay.
Somebody showed me a JPEG of streaming a video on the internet, which was mind blowing.
Yeah. You were saying that.
What?
Yeah.
How did they do that?
Yeah.
And anybody who remembers, especially back in the early 90s, ISP services like AOL ran on POPs, is what the term was, and they were local POPs. And you had to stream through a telephone line, so that you heard that screeching sound of, and if you're listening to this, you had one in your home and you had AOL, you know what that sound was that came across your computer of connecting over fiber, or through a copper line or through whatever it was. But it took forever, but you could do it. And I thought, I'm in trouble. So I started a little web development company, and then I got the idea from a long time ago when I was a kid. My mom, who shopped at grocery stores, got green stamps. And she would fill up the green stamp books and then collect the books. And then that's how we got
green
Christmas.
Stamps?
Yeah, it's a foreign concept to you.
Yeah.
But they're frequent flyer miles.
Oh, okay.
If you will.
Yeah.
You go to the store, they gave you stamps, you put those stamps inside books, you fill up the books, and so many books would buy a basketball.
I see.
And that's how we got our Christmas. I mean, I was poor. I grew up. I didn't know the difference, but our family was poor. And my mom was very creative and ran her own little daycare business. She was the entrepreneur of the family. But the idea hit me, shopping dollars, online shopping. If we're going to go to a community of commerce where we're going to have shopping online, well, then why not create the idea of, if you shop through internet, through the stores, because back then all the brick and mortar was lining up to get on the website, because everybody thought at that time, this is 1998, you could just go online and shop. People would do it. Well, it's a great idea, but not everybody was excited about putting their credit card over the internet. I mean, it was a very foreign. Today we don't think about it. We tap that thing wherever we go. But back then, it was a big deal. But me and a couple of guys got a great idea of starting what we called One World Online. And so my slogan was, why put America online? We could put the world online. And so that birthed a company called One World Online. And that was about 1997, 98 when we started formulating it. And then David and Nemelka, there's a David and Nemelka Senior and Junior, and they became my partners. And they knew how to raise money. And so they had this whole idea of let's join the .com, let's take this idea. They had been in touch with it through another person who had a similar business and that, but I had the production experience and I had my ideas because of network marketing. I said, why don't we start a direct selling company with the internet, with online shopping, and we'll sell. I went back to the membership idea.
Yeah.
We'll sell these memberships for $100. And then they could shop in our community and earn shopping dollars. And then we had like a running total of their bank account. This is before there were frequent flyer miles, by the way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And they could then take those shopping dollars, and we had a whole nother store where they could just buy things. So it was unique, different, expensive, because we had to have the store, we had to have a warehouse. But these guys were brilliant, these father and son team, on raising money. And so we raised, I think, about 14 million back then to privately, and then we took it public. That's how we did it through a clean shell. Instead of, you get some benefits. There were pros and cons to doing that, but if you had a really good clean shell, it was a very good way to go, because you had a time to ramp up for profitability, for reporting.
And describe that process. What is a clean shell and just like fifth grade reading level?
And they were the experts. I mean, I didn't understand any of that, but I was sure excited about the idea of being public.
Yeah.
And because the rush on that was, and I'll never forget it, when we did it and we went public and it came out like around 50 cents a share on the shell, watching those share prices.
Wait, but what is the shell? Is that like NASDAQ or like,
okay. You're considered an over-the-counter, but you had to qualify to be on the NASDAQ.
Oh, okay, I see.
And so you start out with a good shell, you prove yourself out, and then when you reach a certain point, then you get approval, and then you can go on the NASDAQ, because it comes down to how much you're generating. And I think we did 7 million out of the gate that first year, but it was new. It was different. We were the first in direct selling to do it. Then I started seeing others pop up. But the dot-com bubble, we were just too early.
Yeah.
And it was it's a good thing we did go public, because we had money to do things, which that's why you go public, to one or two things you go public is to raise money to acquire other companies, which we did. One of the fun things that we did when we went public is Success Magazine went bankrupt in 1998. And we knew the gentleman, my partner knew the guy who owned it. And so one of the things that we did was we leveraged our public company to buy Success Magazine out of bankruptcy and merge it into ours. And we were going to use the magazine as a vehicle to promote One World Online ISP service, because we had an ISP service. We were competing with AOL.
Mm-hmm.
We were very small fish.
Yeah, exactly.
In a very large pond at that time, because AOL was king. But then all of a sudden, these free internet services started popping up, and we had a pay model, But what happened was we grew. We ended up having, in that first year, around 60,000 ISP customers. But you got a valuation of about $600 per customer back then. It's like what we're seeing right now with crypto being the new internet 3.0, but how much the valuation is, or technology, much higher valuation than another company. But that was incredible that we had that kind of valuation on a customer. And that's how we were able to really get the price of the stock up. And we owned a third, and a third.
I'm sure that was exciting.
We had some private owners, because we did a private placement memorandum to get us started, and then, of course, their shares. But in 2021, the dot-com bubble burst. And it was because there was a lot going on at that time.
In 2000 when?
2001.
2001, not 2021. That's what I heard for some reason.
2001.
2001, okay.
And I might have said 21.
No, I don't think you did, but
you can edit that out.
Yeah.
In 2001, about April, I'll never forget this. But it just collapsed, and it was an ugly time to be in the market.
Yeah.
And our shares tanked along with everybody else's, because nobody understood. I mean, you had Amazon that came out around 2018 or 19, and they were losing money year after year, but they could raise it on his vision of what could be. Our vision was that people would shop online, and we were already there, but people weren't really shopping online.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you had some airline tickets, 1-800-Flowers, which was a relationship that I met through my going through the Entrepreneur of the Year. I got to know the owner of 1-800-Flowers, and they had gone to an internet model, and they were selling online flowers, which was one of the first to embrace that online shopping. But the volume wasn't there. And so when the dot-com bubble burst, my partners and I decided, no, this is bigger than us. So raising money was tough.
Yeah.
We sold the ISP service off. We paid off our debts. I mean, I felt bad. You don't have control. Shareholders lost, because they bought in, and it was a horrible thing. And what made it even worse at that time was the year prior, when we were just taking off, especially the dot-com bubble was going crazy in 2000. July of 2000 that year, we lost one of our children to a drowning accident, and which literally brought my world to a screeching halt. I mean, I just can't even begin to explain that. But here we were trying to launch a company. The public market was struggling. I was chairman of the company. We were doing road shows and everything, and now I'd lost my son, and I couldn't function. I just unplugged. Just showing up wasn't going to happen, and it took me months to where I even could. And finally, my partners were amazing, and to this day, I am so grateful for them, because they said they never put pressure on me. You come back when you're ready. Well, meanwhile, the dot-com bubble is bursting, and the two of them and the team, we had a phenomenal team of people. I think we had about 80 employees at One World Online, and it was high tech, high touch, high tech, no check, as what the term was back there, and they were dealing with all that while I was at home dealing with that. I get into a little bit of that in my book, where you reach a crossroad, and then you really have a crucible moment where you say, what's right? What should I do? And I had an overwhelming feeling to unplug, take my family to St. George, keep our home in Provo, go to St. George, and literally collectively gather ourselves and focus on each other, and not on what happened, and get through this. And it was a tough time.
I'm sure.
And fortunately, some things were in place financially that I didn't have to worry. I was able to go down there, be at home dad. I did some things, but mostly the stock market, because I was so excited when we could trade online and do it ourselves. That was a big deal. Me and a good friend, Lee Johnson, we used to get on the phone early in the morning and talk about what stocks we thought, and we'd keep our phones live with our headsets on, and we would trade a couple hours in the morning on fun ideas and that. And that's kind of what I did, because I had a pretty good residual coming in that at least kept me going. I don't know how much you want to go into all that.
Yeah.
I don't want to ramble.
No, I definitely do want to dive more into. I mean, I feel like that's got to be my worst fear. Like I can't comprehend something harder than that. And I commend you for having like a plan and trying to figure it out.
I don't know. I think I had divine intervention.
Yeah.
I think we were being blessed, and we were listening, because it's humbling in the first place. You find out, I remember realizing I can't fix this, Remember I said early on, entrepreneurs like to solve problems.
Mm.
We're fixers. We think we can fix it. This was something I knew I couldn't fix. I mean,
What does that look like trying to show up for you? I mean, even a year later, 2 years later, what does that look like trying to show up for like the rest of your family? Like, I literally just can't
well,
comprehend
that's
that.
what they say that when a drowning child in a family, the marriage has an 80% chance it's going to fall
Oh,
apart.
yeah.
It's the highest.
Yeah.
Then that parent, who is my type personality, does one of two things. They jump all in and work becomes, and then that separates the family because you escape through your work. That wasn't me. And I think that was a blessing for me because I felt like I had, not that I'd done enough, but how much more
Mm.
could I do at the risk of losing my family?
Mm.
Because kids were going through a very hard thing.
Yeah.
They were old enough to understand. My oldest son at the time was 16, and then he turned 17, and he was going into his senior year. And then there's 5 years between my sons, who loved their little brother, who were the best big brothers ever. 2 daughters, they were 5 years apart. And so we had 5 children, Riley being the youngest. And when a member of the family is pulled from gone in an instant, you can't imagine the mental things you go through, especially as a father. Or I literally beat myself up because I was there with him. I turned my head for a few minutes to do some things, and that's when the accident happened. And there was kids in the swimming pool. Grandma and grandpa were standing there, but they say these accidents happen during gatherings, and there's so many people, and it was a blinding moment. There's some personal things that happened that I won't share prior to that, but in my faith, there's a plan. God's in charge. He has a plan for you. It's up to you to figure out what it is. And sometimes we get thrown curves. It's how we handle what we're given based on what our foundation is. So you better have a pretty strong faith in what you believe and hold on to it, because I don't know how we would have got through it without it. I just don't know how. I mean, because there were some dark moments, even for myself, where I blame myself. I really did. It was hard. And, but pulling up and literally leaving was a hard decision. It means change the kids' schools, change their friends, get out of this, because the reminder of him every day was there. We stayed for 2 more years in that home, and then it was in the summer of 2002 that we ended up in St. George, and which turned out to be a blessing. Some good things happened, some bad things happened. I mean, there are no perfect situations. You just keep moving and you keep looking for the learns, just in everything that we do, right?
Yeah.
And that's what that turned into. That was my time to find out what was really most important. Because I'll admit, I was on a run as a businessman. I thought I could do anything. I felt unstoppable. I felt like, give me the next thing, kind of let's go, And when that happened, it just shut everything down into that. What am I going to do now? And the choice was exit, take what I could. Fortunately, like I said, I had 2 partners that were amazing. I don't know how they wrapped up the company, to be honest. They just knew what they were doing, and I had done all I could do because I wasn't motivated to go on stages or be in front of people. My life had changed, and so I adjusted accordingly, and that was to disappear with my family.
Yeah.
I could have personally disappeared. That happens. I could have lost myself in that, and who knows what would have happened. No, I felt we made the right decision. As hard as it was, we made the right decision. And my wife and I made a commitment when we were in the hospital that regardless of the outcome, we have to stay together. That's because if we're not together on this, then it will divide the family, and then it will become a statistic. And I don't want to be a statistic. I want my family.
Well, Kelly, thanks for sharing that. And the respect I have for you is, yeah, I can't put it into words. But one thing that I'm learning about you is, and I can see the businessman in Kelly and why you were so successful, is just how you adapted in these executive decisions, whether it's bringing your family to St. George or whether it's adapting because marketing shifts. And like the fact that you had such a long career in an industry that changes, like it feels like every other week,
Yeah.
it is like extremely impressive. And for me, like in real estate, it's probably like it changes of course, but it's probably slower, but I'm like constantly seeing writing on their wall of like AI is coming. How is that going to influence my industry? How can I don't want to be reactive. I want to be like proactive, right? So, I mean, what advice do you have for entrepreneurs out there towards that mentality? And I know a lot of it's probably instinct, but if there's any tactic behind it, I'd love to hear your 2 cents there.
Well, you're not always going to make the right decision. One of the things you have to understand as an entrepreneur is failure is part of the process. So some things will fail. I mean, you're going to have probably more failures than success. I was thinking about this when I was on my way here, because I don't have an incredible story of how I went on and became a multimillionaire, selling my company for $100 million. There's some incredible stories in Utah.
Yeah.
My story is I'm the average guy who had an idea, who grew a business, was able to employ hundreds of people, provide jobs. I probably wasn't the sharpest at how to manage money back then. I poured everything back into my business. I poured my money into investing in people. I mean, I didn't take a big fat salary. I took a very conservative salary. I did some things on the side, in real estate or things like, investing in stocks. And so, but my story is how to be an entrepreneur.
Mm.
And that you're not defined by how big it becomes. You're defined about what you become, the person.
Mm.
And it really does matter because I still think, I'm still engaged with companies today. My role today is much different than what it was. I have no desire to start a company. I've had my opportunities. My days have come and gone. It's a different environment. I still love tech, so I stay on the tech side of things. Hang on. And you hit the nail on the head, AI. I saw AI 9 years ago through a friend who introduced me to it, his business. And I just thought, this is brilliant. But I didn't get it. I didn't understand bots. I didn't understand authoring platforms. I didn't understand what all that was until I spent some time with him. And I knew he had something this channel that I'm in needed, but I knew that my channel wasn't ready for it. I saw it with the .com. It's not an industry that's first to market. They're just not. They're not wired that way. I'm wired that way. I want to be the first. I've always done things ahead of time. I mean, there's so many stories in between all this that I haven't even shared with you that I was able to be a part of. But I want my message as an entrepreneur is I took a video camera like a lawnmower and I went out and found customers like a lawnmower, a window cleaner, a detailer. I just chose it with the video camera.
Mm.
And in some ways a specialty because I had to be good at knowing how to frame. I've always had an eye for photography and art. And so at the beginning for me, it was no big deal. I don't know what, but I could take a picture of something and capture that moment and have it look good, So weddings was an easy thing to videotape because it's a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
You're capturing a moment that you can't do again, or you hope you don't have to do again.
Yeah.
But it was more of delivering a piece of art that was a memory for them to keep. And that was it. There's nothing special about me. I mean, really, I was a scrapper. It's like, I got to make this work. I just got fired, right? So entrepreneurialism is born out of fear. It happens. I use the word crucible, but when you're in your worst of times, that's when a light clicks and you went, oh my gosh, I should do this. And then acting on it. That's the difference between an entrepreneur and somebody who really isn't wired that way, who's probably more, and I mentioned this earlier, there's a buccaneer entrepreneur and there's a farmer entrepreneur. I mean, some brilliant ideas have been born out of this valley. I mean, it's incredible of all the tech companies that have come out. And I saw from the very first Novell and WordPerfect that they were my generation. And Duff Thompson that I mentioned earlier that helped me, he was the attorney for WordPerfect. And he became he was an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I really, but he was educated and had a law degree. And so his value as an entrepreneur was working on the company, with those who founded WordPerfect. And I won't get into names and all that.
And that's what, farmer versus
yeah, they
buccaneer?
can come in and take it to the next level.
That's farmer.
Yes.
Okay.
The buccaneer is the risk taker.
Yeah. I'm not as
The
a
buccaneer, if you go look up the definition, it defines a buccaneer. He's a little bit of a loose cannon, but
Yeah.
he gets it going. You got to have the guy that's going to get it going. And I see those guys all the time. I'm working with one right now, and Matt Marchbanks, and his company's called Zip Lingo. They came to me 10, 12 years ago and asked if I would come in. And I looked at their model and I went, you're just getting started. I'm not into that. I need to see customers. I need to see success. I need to talk to your customers. And so time went by where then 2 years ago, they came back to me. I'm in a different place. Me and some partners had sold a business that was an app called Deductor that brilliant accountants developed, but they brought us in to market it and then to take it to the next level, becoming the farmer.
Yeah.
They were the ones who came up with the idea. And then we grew that database of customers to over 700,000. And then we sold it to a company called Hurdler, who has the whole industry of real estate, Airbnbs, and Uber drivers. So, but we had a lot of customers. That happened in 2019. But today, I'm using the example of a buccaneer. Matt's a buccaneer. He's brilliant. He can take
the Zip Lingo guy.
Yeah, the owner of Zip Lingo and his team. They're a small team, but they're sharp. They're really good. They just don't know what they have. And I now have grown out of the buccaneer to maybe meet more the farmer. Like, okay, you just need to know how to get your name out there. You need to talk to the right people. And so I've become a connector in that channel. The role that I play today, way different. But I realized my greatest asset was my relationships. Most important thing you can do in life, wherever you're at, in whatever stage you're in, is to build good relationships. Never burn bridges. Stay close to people. Recognize people for who they are. Give them credit for who they are. And build those bridges and those so that one day when you're older, and I've got friends that reach out to me and they're in their 60s. I'm turning 69 next month, and they've lost their jobs and they didn't have a plan. And they're like, well, so what do I do? And it's a hard thing to communicate, because how do you do it is what they say. You're out there and you're still making money, and I don't even know what it is you do. And it's a bit of a mystery to some, but I kind of function as a fractional, mostly CRO, but whatever capacity to come in, because I've been where they've never been. I know how to grow an idea and take it to the next level. That's my value.
Yeah.
So I tell them, what's your value? What is it that you do that's really unique to you at this age? I'm a great reference for a baby boomer because they're at the prime of their lives and most likely they weren't ready for it. We're going to see a lot of that.
Yeah.
These next few years are going to be tough years for some people.
I can only see that, especially with all the changes.
Well, good news for you is you're so young.
It's
So you
exciting.
have nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
I mean, take all the failures you can get your hands on because each one's a learn, right? I was never afraid of failure. My mom, I think, taught me that. Nobody likes to fail. Nobody likes to fall, but I'm not afraid of it. I didn't, because I know I'll figure it out. I know there's a way I can take that lemon and turn it into lemonade, is the old saying in that. But that's what I grew up on. Just not being afraid to go do what you want to do. Make sure you love it. And that I've always loved the things that I've done. Even what I do today, I love helping these companies. And what I love more is when they appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's what you look for. If you're doing stuff and they don't really appreciate you, it's like, I don't want to be here.
I love it.
Because I think that's what young companies are really missing is wisdom. And I think this could be an age for businessmen who really learned what happens in a collapse market. A collapse market is coming. I'm not a doomsdayer, but I've been through 2 really bad markets and survived. And so there's a story behind, I can help you get through that, but you need to know what you want to do. Are you willing to fight for it? That's the stage I'm at with this company. And this Matt, he's got other ideas that he wants to do. And I try to keep him focused because you've got this really good idea. It's communications platform. He's a HubSpot for direct selling companies. That's what got my attention. He's unique. He has no competition like me. I had a video production business. I had no competition for a very long time until a Texas company came along and gave me some competition, and he was really good. But the competition's good because it forces you.
It elevates you. Yeah.
To stay in the game and how to be a chess player. Okay, how do I get 2 moves ahead? So they're chasing me and I'm not chasing them. That's
amazing.
I think that's the greatest advice I could give entrepreneurs is you have to be ahead of the competitors. You better know your competitors and know who they are and what they're about and how are you going to be different. And differentiator has always been a key word, but I don't think most really understand what that means. You have to be different. You're in the real estate. You have a lot of competition.
Yep.
How do you become different?
Yeah.
And you're doing it right now. You run a podcast.
It's been a journey. I tried.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And you become like Switzerland to some degree, where you let other people tell their stories, which I think is brilliant. And if people follow you, they'll follow the stories. That's what you're counting on, right?
Exactly.
But you're branding
right.
yourself
Yeah.
at the same time. And
Exactly
I think
right.
you're going to be a wild success.
I appreciate it.
Because you're not afraid.
I've
You
taken
weren't
a lot
afraid
of L's, yeah.
to reach out to me.
Yeah.
Not that I'm a big deal. I'm not. But I was impressed with the fact that you were persistent. And I thought, okay, this guy, I think I need to go to lunch with him.
I appreciate it, Kelly.
And it was fun. We had a
it
good
was.
conversation. And then here I am.
Here we
You
are.
didn't have to, you just let it happen. And that's a really good sign for you.
I appreciate it.
So
It's been a journey. Well, Kelly, you've given so much free advice to the audience, so I appreciate more than you know coming out, and hopefully we'll do another podcast in 5 years and get a follow up on what you're doing. So
what you're doing.
yeah, maybe